Welcome to the Spirit Room. This podcast is a gathering place for people in search of personal growth and life's higher meaning. I'm your host, Mike Consul. I also invite you to spend time on the Spirit Room website, where you'll find headlines about religion, spirituality, psychology, and the New Age movement. Just go to thespiritroom.org. If you're past the age of 30, or certainly if you're past the age of 40, and you've done some living, you are well aware that the human mental state can be extremely fragile. In fact, if you're past the age of 30 or 40, you've probably had some bouts of depression or anxiety, at least some minor ones. Maybe some situational depression because of the loss of a loved one or some kind of setback in your life. And it's amazing how we can look around us and see big-name people who are famous, wealthy, successful, with powerful personalities, who suddenly, out of the blue, will just get struck down by depression. You hear about this over and over again, but I got a really detailed example of this when I was reading Bruce Springsteen's autobiography called Born to Run, naturally enough. And I got the audio edition because I commute. In fact, I'm commuting even as I record this, so I apologize for the background noise you might hear. You may hear some traffic noise in the background or some road noise. But I want to tell you that autobiography, Born to Run, and I'm not a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I'm a fan, but not a huge one. But I'm a big fan of Bruce Springsteen, the person. And I have to tell you, that autobiography, he just bears his soul in a very positive way, in a way that really humanizes him. And one of the things he talks about, and I want to play you a clip from the book, which, by the way, the audio edition, he actually reads himself, which I really appreciated because he's a great storyteller and he's got a terrific voice for that purpose. And he gets into detailed description about the depression and later anxiety that he suffered through. When he was young, he went through a short bout of depression. But then when he turned 60, it was wham. And he admits that he was just floored by it, and it came out of the blue, and it was as if somebody had thrown a switch. And he also admits that he ended up on antidepressants. Not that that's anything to be ashamed of or anything to feel weak about, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people still see it as a stigma to have to turn to pharmacology to get by in life. But then later, after having dealt with the depression, he was stricken with anxiety, a really bad case of anxiety. And having had some anxiety in my past, nowhere near to the degree that he suffered from, I could certainly appreciate what he was talking about and even relate to it in a lot of ways. That's the clip that I want to play you from the book and have Bruce Springsteen tell you in his own words exactly what he was going through. It is startling, it's eye-opening, but I think it's also important when a celebrity shares this kind of information because there's so many people who go through this. And I think a lot of people, in a sense, can appreciate the thought that, look, if Bruce Springsteen's gone through this with all he's accomplished and all that he is and all that he has in life, if he can fall victim to it, then there's no shame in it happening to me. There's no shame in it happening to you. Life is fragile, and people's sense of self, their sense of self-esteem, their sense of confidence, and just their state of happiness and stability is very fragile. It can be knocked off course very easily. And a lot of times it's knocked off course for no apparent reason. There's no particular triggering event. It just happens, and that's really what happened with Bruce Springsteen. Now, when he turned 60, that's when the depression hit. The second bout of depression in his life, but that's been the big bout. But then it was years later that the anxiety really kicked in, and his recounting of it, again, it's quite eye-opening, and I want to play a clip for you right now. So here is Bruce Springsteen, in his own words, telling us about the battle. Take a listen.
Mild post-tour depression can usually be expected. Sometime in June, I noticed I wasn't feeling all that well. The shows are an insane high. The adulation, the touring company, the fact that it's all about you. When you come off the road, that stops on a dime, and you're a father and husband. But now the kids are driving, so you're an out-of-work chauffeur. The bump is natural, but the crash that I experienced this time was something else altogether. It was hard to explain, bearing symptoms I'd never encountered before in my life. I had an attack of what was called an agitated depression. During this period, I was so profoundly uncomfortable in my own skin that I just wanted out. It feels dangerous and brings plenty of unwanted thoughts. I was uncomfortable doing anything, standing, walking, sitting down. Everything brought waves of an agitated anxiety that I'd spend every waking minute trying to dispel. Demise and foreboding were all that awaited, and sleep was the only respite. During waking hours, I'd spend the day trying to find a position I would feel all right in for the next few minutes. I was not hyper. In fact, I was too depressed to concentrate on anything of substance. I'd pace the room, looking for the 12 square inches of carpet where I might find release. If I could get myself to work out, that might produce a short relief. But really all I wanted was the bed, and unconsciousness. I spent good portions of the day with the covers up to my nose, waiting for it to stop. Reading or even watching television felt beyond my ability. All my favorite things, listening to music, watching some film noir, caused such an unbearable anxiety in me because they were undoable. Once I was cut off from all my favorite things, the things that tell me who I am, I felt myself dangerously slipping away. I became a stranger in a borrowed and disagreeable body and mind. This lasted for 6 weeks, all the while we were overseas. It affected me physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. It all went out the door. I was truly unsure if I could ever perform in this condition. The fire in me felt like it had gone out, and I felt dark and hollow inside. Bad thoughts had a heyday. If I can't work, how will I provide for my family? Will I be bedridden? You feel the thinness of the veil of your identity and an accompanying panic that seems to be just around the corner. I couldn't live like this. Not forever. For the first time, I felt I understood what drives people toward the abyss. The fact that I understood this, that I could feel this, emptied my heart out and left me in a cold fright. There was no life here, just an endless, irritating, existential angst embedded in my bones. It was demanding answers I did not have, and there was no respite. If I was awake, it was happening. So, I'd try to sleep. 12, 14 hours weren't enough. I hated the gray light of morning. It would mean the day was coming. The day when you're supposed to rise and shine, be filled with purpose, with life. I couldn't get out of bed. Hell, I couldn't even get a hard on. It was like all my notorious energy, something that had been mine to command for most of my life, had been cruelly stolen away. I was a walking husk.
And there you have it. Human fragility for even the rich, famous, and powerful. Throughout this book, Bruce Springsteen wrestles with lots and lots of demons. His upbringing with a father who is mentally ill and quite remote and even cruel. It's a very sensitive recounting of a extraordinary and rocky life. That's all for this episode, and the beat goes on.